who you are, how you got into cycling, and what it does for you. How do you feel about that?
Yeah.
Starting there.
I'm happy to dive in.
Yeah. What do you think?
Oh, you want?
How'd you get pulled into cycling in the first place?
So,
Phil, for you.
honestly, like, like most people, I rode my bike as a kid, and then there was a long period of my life where like I didn't really ride a bike. Sometime senior year of high school, I started working out with a friend of mine, and I'd ride my bike over to his house, and they had a little workout studio in the back. And then we'd finish it, and we didn't want to do our homework, and we'd go ride around Austin at night, like on the Town Lake Trail primarily. And it was great. Like, I was spending time with my friend. We got to explore. It wasn't in a car, and it was kind of like this unstructured time for us to go see the city. And we were just messing around on bikes. So super fun. He became my roommate in college, and another roommate of ours got a bicycle too, and we were all commuting to school. And then when we moved to North Campus, so about 3 miles north of campus, our commute started getting longer and longer. And it just kind of became a part of like what we did. Like, what are we gonna do Friday night? Let's take our bikes, let's go grocery shopping, or let's go, explore a park, what have you. And like, in that period of time, like the bike was just like something you grabbed when you went out the door.
Transportation. It was just,
but also like it's freedom on campus. Like, we could ride it anywhere. It was, a play thing. It was a tool. We used to laden them with, our grocery bags. At one point, the Randall's clerk would call us the Three Stooges because we'd be stuffing, like baguettes into the handlebars of our bikes, in the drop bars.
it's the middle.
We'd have, like a gallon of ice cream. We're trying to like bike back with it before it melts. So
you were born and raised in Austin?
I was, yeah.
What part of town?
I was raised in like the Zilker Park and Barton Hills neighborhood.
Okay.
So I still live close to there. So that's always been like, I've had the green belt to ride on, but honestly, I never really rode on it that much. It really wasn't until college that I started really exploring the city by bike. And that was where, that relationship deepened, I guess.
Yeah. You were gravel riding. What kind of bike were you riding back then when you were a kid?
Oh man, I had, I think it was a Specialized rock hopper, but standard mountain bike. And then when I went to college, I bought a commuter bike that had, I guess it's closest to a gravel bike these days. It had wider, slick tires, had flat handlebars though, but it was plenty fast and flat, or fast enough on the road. Had a triple chain ring in the front, so I could climb up the hills, and it was but I didn't flat every time I got on a gravel path. So, fine for exploring some of the back roads and alleys in Austin too, as we did. So
you were an athlete?
No, not
an athlete.
No, I was a nerd.
You were a nerd.
Yeah, no, and actually that was, I think there were a couple of things going on. Like, all throughout high school, I went to the Liberal Arts and Science Academy here in Austin, which is this rigorous high school, and I was quite busy and academically focused there. And I didn't take time much for sports unless it fulfilled a requirement. Like I had PE requirements, so I did some fencing, and I think I did golf for a semester. I've never played a round of golf in my life, but I got a credit for doing that. But I wasn't athletic, and I was struggling with my weight too, through like 8th grade. Like I think at one point I weighed almost 210 pounds. Just so happened freshman year, I ended up being diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which is like an irritable bowel disease. But I lost a ton of weight, dropped down to like 125 pounds from 210.
That's big.
In about a year.
Degrees. Good.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
wait, you were fencing, back to the fencing and golfing. Were you just doing aristocratic? Was this like aristocratic sports? Did they just have like? No. I just see when you're not on your. You just have top hat. You're like white gloves in school.
Not at all.
Now it's time for fencing. Who the heck fences?
So the fencing. Honestly, I'm not sure why that became a thing. I mean, I know when I was a kid that Austin has a great fencing scene here.
I bet they do.
So there was the Texas Fencing Academy, and then there's another one that's like Austin Fencers. It's been too long, but they had multiple great programs for that. And when I was a kid, there was like a summer camp for fencing that I'd gone to a couple of times.
This is like where you got a little pole and you try to stick people with it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And you like hold one hand back here and you're like,
depending on the style that you're fencing, yes. There's foil and épée and saber. Yeah, I mean, as a child, I was like, this is playing with swords.
That seems fun.
Yeah, it was kind of fun. And then also, your relationship changed with that too. But it is a skill and strength sport and speed, but it's also a chess game. And this will kind of lead into cycling too. But I liked it because, you had to be fast, strong, focused, and mentally aware. Like your goal in fencing, particularly, I ended up preferring épée, in which your entire body is a target, and you can score a touch against your opponent at the same time that you score a touch.
Okay.
So your goal is always how am I going to get close enough to you to touch you somewhere on your body with the tip of the sword without also getting tagged.
Yeah.
So sometimes you'd be fast, you'd try to move in and touch them just on the tip of their toe or on the edge of their hand, and then move back. Or other times you'd be trying to catch them in a series of blade movements and force their blade out of the way so that you could create this opening.
Whoa.
And then you're managing your distance all the time. And honestly, I got out of it because I was doing so much schoolwork that I wasn't sleeping enough, and I was showing up to practice so tired that I couldn't think enough or think fast enough to keep up with the play-by-play. And it was just frustrating to me. I'm like, physically, I can do this. Cognitively, I needed to rest more. It's like I can go and practice on my own. But that was, there's some element of it that was, I guess you could say it's aristocratic. But those academies, they had all the equipment for you, so you paid your fee.
I'm just goofing off. Really.
No, but
it does seem like it's about touche,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there was all these other considerations. If you did have your own swords, you had to transport them in a certain way, otherwise the police might stop you on the street for having a sword. A sword, yeah, which is ironic given Texas's weapons laws.
Yeah, I know. You could
get stopped for having a safety sword,
but not your.
Yeah, but again, for a kid's program that again, it's a mind and body connection. All of these.
Oh yeah.
My favorite sport. Well, all sports are, right?
And but then later on you found out you had Crohn's and you were also overweight at the time. You lost 90 pounds in 1 year, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And imagine that changed your body and your lifestyle changed in that year.
And that's where that's kind of how I my senior year of high school, when I started getting some time back, and then in college, I started doing much more sport. So that's when I started getting into it. And then cycling, and really my senior year of cycling at UT with the Texas cycling program is the first time I signed up for a season of racing together and started considering myself as somewhat athletic, or for the first time since I was a kid, I was oh, I might have some athletic potential here.
Your senior year?
Yeah, my senior year, both of high school and in college.
Huh.
I found that by that point in both of those careers, my academics were kind of set. So I felt I had a little bit more time to back off or to choose some extra focus in those years. So for cycling, for me in particular, both those times in my life was a part of this transitional phase into believing that I could, have an athletic body or, do harder things. And that's an identity crisis thing. I think there are many people that are less fit than I am that do incredible feats all the time. So believing in myself came a little bit through the sport.
Yeah. Were you doing group rides back then?
Some, yeah. I mean, that's how Texas cycling really kind of fostered. I mean, I think how many people come to the sport, but my group riding really started with, they had a ride called the Shootout on Fridays. It would start at UT's campus outside of Gregory Gym at 4:20 on Fridays.
There were stoners?
No, just a great time to meet, obviously.
Come on, they were stoners.
No, I honestly...
They weren't stoners?
No, we never smoked. No, you can't smoke outside of Gregory Gym. It's no smoking campus.
But we 4:20?
I mean, it's college. They were always going to make a joke about that.
Yeah, okay. So they meet up at 4:20.
Yeah, I mean, at one point while I was there, they did get away with putting an image of the UT Tower on the kits with the clock set to that time as a reminder for the ride on Fridays. So the university approved that. That was the great pulling of the wool over their eyes. But that ride, in my opinion, was fantastic.
Yeah.
Smaller weeks we might have 10 or 15 people, but bigger weeks there would be like 30 people coming to that ride.
Wow.
It would include people that were just casual riders on campus, like myself the first time I showed up on my commuter bike, all the way to people that were doing triathlon or had come back from the Texas 4,000 ride, this 4,000
all the way
mile
to
ride.
Alaska, right?
Yeah. So those folks would come to this ride some. And then we had at the time some elite racers on the team as well. And we would ride up to Shoal Creek. The cyclists here in town know there's a little 3-mile loop in a neighborhood with about a 1.5-mile stretch that's straight, very few driveways, has a bike lane. We'd ride there at 10 to 13 miles an hour, extremely accessible speed.
Yeah.
And then they would fly down that 1.5 mile straightaway, and there'd be a little sprint at the end.
The Great Northern? They would do Great Northern?
Yep.
Sprint?
And they do that anywhere from 2 to 4 or 5 times if the weather was really nice.
Wow.
So, everyone was kind of getting in like a little interval workout together.
Yeah.
And then at the end of it, everyone would ride back together and it would drop right back down to that, 13 mile an hour speed pace, and then they'd go get, either pizza or burritos together. So there was a social element, there was a training element. If you were fast and you were at the front of that ride, like you were getting really good sprint training.
Yeah.
It had this repetition because of the loop nature, like you could sit out a lap. So it was this really welcoming space.
Yeah.
So that was my first like bigger group ride kind of experience. And then I got into the motor group ride from there, which UT and Mellow Johnny's like co-ran at the time, and Paul Goldman was the primary ride leader for that. And like at the time, that was like a transition for me from doing like a 20-mile group ride to a 30 and 40-mile group ride. And then I started showing up on the Violet Crown Sunday rides and doing 50 and 60 miles.
Yep.
So it just kind of it built from there. But all of these communities had these people that were looking out from you. Like we talked about these archetypes on the ride.
Yeah.
Like you usually had a very fast leader of the group that would be sitting somewhere in that first third. There'd be some young guns like pushing the pace at the front, sometimes getting tips from the experienced folks. And then you'd have somebody at the back that was stopping and helping you fix your flat.
Yeah.
And so there were different people in each of those rides that did that, but like you very quickly saw all of those roles. And if you were failure tolerant, you kind of stuck with it. That was my early exploration. I'll say more consistency in cycling came to me after I moved back to Austin. I did a lot of smaller independent training rides my senior year of college. I spent a lot of time riding with a guy named Max Bernhardt, who was just ever so slightly faster than I was.
Which is perfect. It
was perfect. I'd spend 3 hours glued to his wheel or watching him ride away from me. We used to do the dam loop a lot together. I remember the first time I met him off the bicycle, I actually didn't recognize him because I'd spent so much time staring at the back of his head. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is the first time I've seen your face. I've never been able to keep up.
Yeah.
I'm wandering here, but that's kind of how I started falling into group rides, and the racing evolved from that too.
And when you came back, you graduated from UT in
2016.
In what was your discipline?
So I studied environmental science with a focus in biology.
Okay.
So I was a College of Natural Sciences graduate. That program was shared with the Jackson School of Geology and with the College of Liberal Arts. So for me, it was fantastic. I got to take courses from all 3 of those schools,
cool.
I am by interest interdisciplinary. So to be able to freely take classes there I really enjoyed. One of my favorite classes was in Aztec art and civilization.
Ooh, that sounds cool.
Exactly. And that tied right in with my Latin American water studies course.
Wow.
Which tied right in with my hydrogeology courses. And then I'd tie that back into my ecology courses. And so I loved that interplay. So fantastic program for me at the time, and still a fantastic program at that school.
Yeah. You went to California, you came back, and then you got more consistent with your writing. It became more of a ritual in your life.
Yeah, and honestly, that's when I started writing with Violet Crown. I came back and I was still enjoying writing and wanting to ride more. And I had a couple of friend groups that I was writing with pretty consistently as well. But the winter months came around and it was often cold, windy, dark, not the kind of environment that I felt highly motivated to go out and ride in.
Me too.
Yeah. And ironically, I started doing the Tuesday and Thursday morning ride because I figured, well, if I'm going to go out when it's cold or when it's windy, I might as well wake up early and go at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday.
Goodness.
That's how I really got stuck in with the club, is because I would show up with those 30 or 35 folks that were willing to brave fair weather, I'd call it now.
Winter,
but as a beginning rider, very intimidating weather. And once you're stuck into, if you commit to the Violet Crown group ride structure, there's 5 rides a week. It's very easy to keep showing up.
5 rides a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. Which one am I missing?
If you count the bagel ride on Saturdays as a
I count Saturday, Sunday.
Well, Saturday's got
Tuesday, Thursday. Saturday has 2 of them: the Violet Cruise and then the bagel ride.
Right. And at the time, and on and off, technically Violet Crown never had motor, but motor it's adjacent. Right. So you always had a good group ride on Saturdays. And at the time too, by that point, my career had advanced enough that I was riding the Mellow Johnny's 100K route, which is another ride that has, if you want to talk about layers of hierarchy, that used to be one of the fastest group rides in town, but it was always run by whoever was the patron of the group that day, either by experience or ability or level. So you'd have rides where the entire ride was a hammer fest. And then others where, the big man would show up and say, hey, we're going to stay together until we get to this point, and then I'm going to open it up and you guys hang on.
Hold on, yeah.
And then we'll regroup at the store. And then it was always a race back into town to see who could hang on there. And then whatever you did on Saturday that thrashed your legs, you'd show up on Sunday with the Violet Crown ride. And if you felt strong, you might push the pace some at the front, or you might go to the back and help relay messages to the front. And if you felt crappy, you'd just sit on the back and spin until, you got your 3 hours in.
I've done the Sunday ride after a bagel on Saturday and felt like, oof. I thought, well, this will be a recovery ride, and it's never a recovery ride.
That was actually something I think there's still some instances on the internet where it describes the VC Sunday ride as a recovery.
It's not a recovery ride.
No, and it's never been a recovery ride.
It's not a recovery ride.
I think back when the club was primarily racers, they did think of the Sunday ride as recovery. But for no one is 3 hours recovery,
or the pace
and
the sprints happen down south during those hills.
And there are some more sprints than there used to be, I would say, but not even the pros are riding for 3 hours and calling it recovery. It was a base miles day. It's always been a base ride.
A good ride.
But I tried real hard to scrub the word recovery from that title, because I felt like it was a little elitist and discouraging. Like if you showed up to somebody's ride that they told you was recovery and it was 3 hours, 50 miles, we had one store stop and had a sprint section in it, and you had a hard time. That's a little bit of a bad experience. Let's drop the word recovery, call it. It's the Sunday endurance ride. It's base. It's steady if you want it to be steady. If you want to push the pace, they have a couple of sprint sections now they do, which is